universal basic income and stuff like this. I hope it becomes like a grand socialist utopia. That's what I hope.
Republicans, ask yourself this: do you want to have a violent, bloody socialist revolution in America? Because what are you thinking? No, I'm kind of like, I suppose the socialist, or you know, the lefty in me is like, well,
there isn't going to be some grand communist revolution. There isn't going to be a grand socialist utopia. There isn't going to be,
like, you know, you can only have a successful socialist communist revolution when
the Greens sort of wrong. Anyway, socialists like us, farmers like us, state employees, the retired, this may just be Tories. This may just be actual fucking National Socialists, actual goddamn Nazis, right? Because I've got a fucking hate base who like money, who want to keep having money, and who would rather not have socialists come along and take the money away from them through tax.
you know, if you want to pick a socialist, are you going to be to pick the guy who was a socialist for, you know, his entire life, who was considered
and was like reformed and is like, yes, we must save all these people, and you have this socialist movement spreading out because, hey, you know,
not least because some socialists would hate me. After all, I'm a bloody capitalist.
Literally said to me in Steam chat, "Hi, I'm a National Socialist. I'm a Nazi," and literally like the last line.
Socialist and trade unionist.
We can make this happen. We can make a better world. We can make a globally socialist world. And in the face of dying capitalism, it's to at socialism, right? Like, by positioning himself as a socialist, Owen Smith was making sure that he would lose an elected leader of the Labour Party and therefore have a half-decent shot of having a socialist elected Prime Minister of...
We actually quite like the idea of a socialist party in power. And, you know, you look at all the core issues, everybody loves the NHS. Who complain about socialists. Admittedly, I do that from time to time, but that's because
pretend like nothing is going to happen, and that we can just tell this socialist to sod off. And then, indeed, I have noticed that quite a few of the new socialists who are unafraid of the term socialist, the
global government / military / libertarian socialist society has got decided amongst, because of course these are the people who also like guns, because these are the socialists and the communists who want to seize the means of the Labour leadership election. It's like, if you're gonna vote for a socialist, vote for a fucking socialist to be deputy, you know. If you're gonna vote... Except they're not actually socialists, because these are people who have abstained on the welfare bills, who have...
Oh, the religious are gonna hate me, the environmentalists are liking me, socialists are liking me, but the liberals...
I'm gonna be screwed. I need a functioning welfare state. I need a socialist in charge of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. If I
call, you know, Jeremy Corbyn what he is, a socialist, he calls him a communist. He calls him the guys that...
written by a socialist. Andrew Ryan is someone who takes... I have rejoined the socialists and the communists and the feminists, and with a better solution, because the better solution is that we vote in socialists who actually provide us with
an easy option in Britain until suddenly we had a lefty socialist on the leadership role and he was doing good.
Was it any kind of socialist? No. It was a conservative politician by the... I mean, I have a lot of left-wing friends. I have genuinely socialist and communist friends, and I don't just mean democratic socialists like Jeremy. That's because there are democratic socialists, and then there are socialists who are like, we shall seize the means of production, pro-life, and yet they're also pro-gun, anti-socialised healthcare, anti-socialist welfare state,
They don't need to be paid all these stuff, you know, if there is a socialist revolution.
What is happening is that people are supporting themselves through libertarian socialist ideals. They are producing their own food in their own...
Get the fuck out of Dodge too, and it's okay. There'd be like a whole ring of like socialist countries around the edge.
When, you know, people would presume I was a liberal or a liberal or a socialist or a communist, or if Bernie Sanders gets elected, if the Democratic Socialist gets elected, then the people who are anti the system have someone to vote for and have feeling in terms of socialism, or at least far more appealing to socialists than the other Republican nominations. And you get Hillary Clinton vote for Donald Trump because then, you know, at least he's more socialist than Hillary Clinton. Yeah, he's also I prefer because the dude's kind of a socialist. And, you know, he does seem to be wanting to do many things right. Not so hot a lot. The right wing complain a lot about champagne socialists. You champagne socialists. Ah! Well, essentially what they're saying is...
The Labour Party at the moment is quite right-wing by our standards. And yet in America, he's a goddamn socialist! Right? So...
Oh, well, you're red Tories. Oh, well, you're deluded socialists. Oh, well, you're fucking communists. Well, you're just insane loony people.
Will destroy capitalism and they will bring about a glorious socialist utopia. And, like, yeah, that's awesome. And so, I don't like saying socialist. Not least because some socialists would hate me.
Compromise and understanding a true internationalist is popular with liberals and socialists in our society, as well as foreign leaders.
Socialism is the answer. I'm not saying that as a socialist, proudly trumpeting my ideology. I'm saying that reporting on whatever dumb shit Trump has done, or reporting that the Democratic Socialist doesn't like the fact that a racist is going about...
Make sure we fucking vote in as many goddamn socialists as we fucking can, right? We are gonna have to do grassroots movements all over the...
guy who is a socialist just because he's running against a socialist, and who actually, you know, worked for a private...
Me, I am a socialist and I will lead the country into a grand socialist utopia. I mean, okay, he's a democratic socialist, which basically is a Nazis socialists when they called themselves socialists. But you can call the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria in offshore bank accounts, and so-called socialists are refusing to take action because if we can't sustain the milking of the rich... This is the, hey, it's okay, we're gonna transfer to a grand socialist utopia, but you don't have to...
Britain or America do ever decide that they will elect a socialist, communist government, that fucking angry that Corbyn isn't enough of a socialist. But Corbyn just genuinely is just someone who knows. And the capitalist will go, oh, no, you left-wing socialist communist, fuck off, because you see, our job videos are done just for fun and can't make money because instead we've got some kind of libertarian socialist distribution of resources to keep everyone in good.
Of that is. So I'm not going to call myself a socialist. I'll call myself an environmentalist, gladly. But I'm not gonna...
All these burgeoning countries, mass exterminate them, and then we could have a socialist revolution. You know, you have Jeremy Corbyn, you have a candidate for change who is a socialist, and suddenly they're like, oh, we must vote in a woman. Oh, absolutely. Play of Democracy Free, bringing grand socialist utopia to America.
Yes, that will be very fun indeed.
In a world where you can have your cake and eat it too. Right? So yes, I am a left-wing socialist, bloody green aligned.
That's what Jeremy Corbyn is. It's not even socialism. Socialists are fucking angry that Corbyn isn't enough of a socialist. Politically speaking, because people say to me, like, but you're a socialist though. Please explain to me why socialism...
A migrant. You can call someone who is a self-proclaimed socialist a communist instead.
I need a proper socialist to be elected leader of the Labour Party and therefore have a half-decent...
It's utterly delightful how this socialist has just perfectly riposted to Andrew Marr, just sort of like,
you know, a Prosecco socialist, and he's got one of these accents that's just like, there are genuinely Nazis who hate my stuff. Genuinely people who identify as National Socialists and want to exterminate anyone who gives them the best of luck, and I do hope that they get their grand socialist utopia, if only because I might like to move there. Someone on the left wing to tell the difference between a genuine National Socialist Nazi who genuinely that he is a self-professed National Socialist, and he asks what you believe in, and you say you're a techno-progressive, and he says, oh, people think, how can you, how dare you, you're a socialist, you're a communist, and yet you people are the most Christian country to be exterminated, and a joker who is saying that they are a National Socialist and that Jews should be exterminated, right? You socialists who are unafraid of the term socialist, the people behind the Scottish National Party, or capitalist / democratic socialist / techno-progressive, so I'm not really a fan. I like Britain, and we can make Britain socialist again. And yes, economy will be difficult, but when the fuck has the left... was my hope. Jeremy Corbyn was my guy on the white charger. He was the socialist who was going to come along because, well, we've got socialism at the helm, and you can't quite attack it in terms of being socialist because it's got the neoliberal being one of these news stories where someone says something stupid, and like, to the left-wing socialist guy, it'd be like, oh, I wonder what was it. Would be slightly dodgy if it was a grand socialist utopia under a nationalist party with the head of German grand socialist utopia. I mean, okay, he's a democratic socialist, which basically is a 80s moderate. But still,
every sane, right-thinking person could vote for a truly socialist green party, and therefore vote for a world countries, and he's he's done so much good reporting, and he's kind of maybe socialist, maybe like he wasn't atheist.
But like, Jeremy Corbyn is in many ways my ideal kind of socialist. Well, no, my ideal kind of. They get smuggled out to sort of socialist town, going like, I worked so hard, what the hell? You can want socialism and not be a national socialist. You can want to fantasize about dominating women and
unrealistic of being a champagne socialist, of being someone who has it so fucking good. Okay?
Becomes a grand socialist utopia, or Europe becomes a grand socialist utopia. But I think actually the first thing the Marxist theory of history than I do about, you know, his socialist and communist theories, because fundamentally I'm not a communist, I'm not a socialist, I'm a regulated capitalist. I'm not.
Jeremy Corbyn is an 80s moderate. He is the kind of socialist who can maybe fix capitalism. He is the kind,
which is kind of socialist Star Trekky sort of, we have no concept of money, everybody just does what they want.
Corbyn, you know, it's like, hey, we've finally got a socialist. Shit, European Union.
And more appealing to socialists than the other Republican nominations. He is a national socialist. And,
you know, Tyler Durden is a sort of socialist taking the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few mentality.
And, you know, call themselves a socialist so long as they are saying enough right-wing things that you're okay with them, you know, invading other countries.
We will achieve a global socialist movement. We will achieve a global diplomatic, political revolution.
Someone who is a genuine democratic socialist, genuinely left-wing, genuinely for equality. I mean, genuine seize the means of production, Marx was right socialists. And they will say to me, well, why isn't Britain having a...
Your Google now gets to know you really well, and it's like, you're a left-wing socialist. We will go through all of the...
Leader of UKIP, and he led the world into grand socialist utopia. Now, it's only when you get socialists running, and the socialists happen to be old white men, that you suddenly...
Labour can come along as the grand socialist heroes, ready to save us all by, you know, guiding us into a future of universal basic income. More socialist. Not national socialist, because not nationalistic. Nationalistic, despite, you know, touting a new global socialist movement, I almost...
And capitalism. Communists and socialists and Marxists describe capitalism as this innately evil thing. People who literally have, like, their Twitter handles are, I'm a proud national socialist. Here's a link to a Nazi site. Which is why they prefer to say, you socialist communist. But anyway, I am someone who does understand this perspective of, and then it's like, okay, let's turn America into a grand socialist utopia. You get assassinated. Great. So yeah, King now and says, I would like that to be better. And there are socialists and communists among the groups that,
and all those left-wing radicals and communists and socialists, they're coming for your scalps.
everybody panics! And they're like, shit, we need a lefty socialist now, and he's winning. And there is such a movement behind
Terrible. And I'm not a socialist. I'm a regulated capitalist. I'm a believer that capitalism
to do well for itself, and it's like, you know what, fuck it, we're socialists now. We want to turn over a new leaf, and he wants a Tory government instead of a socialist government, and it's like, how much fucking more transparent does he need to get?
really, really don't like it. And that's how racists and socialists end up on the same side. Outside of Nazi Germany, of course. Just sort of pleasing no one, and yet, well, no, not quite pleasing no one, because the socialists love me, and the liberals love me. A regulated capitalist, because that, that says it clearly. This is not socialist, this is not guy we were actually fighting. Because you can't call Nazis socialists when they called themselves socialists.
Okay, this is a place filled with genuine communists and socialists and Labour moderates and
of actually thinking that the socialists are right. Of actually thinking that, yeah, maybe capitalism is fucking problematic.
Blairites do. This is why Owen Smith lost, right? In that Jeremy Corbyn is a socialist. Jeremy Corbyn is someone who is... can end the cycle by voting left, by voting socialist. We can end the cycle by...
I suppose to conclude, my advice to any, communists or socialists or just in general lefties
I am going to play at turning America into the grand socialist utopia. So, just to show you the setup.
Okay, I realise that I am basically saying, yes, I will be the great, bold, socialist messiah for a country that is much, much bigger.
As someone might say, well, I'm not actually a National Socialist, but meanwhile I've got someone else saying, what are you talking about? The alt-right dreamt about, like, hey, getting a socialist leader of the Labour Party again. We've got Jeremy Corbyn.
The establishment and the person with the dick is a socialist wanting to take power away from the fucking wealthy and powerful, right? It's like,
come to us, we will liberate you, we're socialists, we're lighter, we're fluffier, come, concentration camps.
These are people who are very much not socialists, and what's their approach? To say that socialism is the right thing. And kind of everybody, all these libertarian socialists, utopias have kind of connected together, and they're
the world into a grand left-wing socialist utopia by just giving everyone good paid holidays, right? No,
fun and can't make money because instead we've got some kind of libertarian socialist distribution of resources to keep everyone in good condition. What happened?
That are kind of almost sometimes explicitly socialist, but sometimes it's just, hey, there's oppression going on here.
Genuinely, I have seen left-wingers, communists, socialists saying we need to be violent towards the Trump supporters.
Got to power by pretending, oh yeah, socialists, we can appeal to socialists too.
Jeremy Corbyn. And he's a proper socialist. And people like him. They really, really like him. They are leaving other parties.
Socialist Owen Smith was making sure that he would lose against the actual socialist. By
socialists. We can appeal to socialists too. Trump's basically doing that. No, it's a case of I will be accepting the welcoming arms of fellow socialists. It is a case of, I will be accepting this. Right, so you know, if I'm going to think of a, you know, left-wing sort of socialist communist system, I'm going to think of... So if someone adds me on Steam and says, oh, by the way, I'm a National Socialist, I'm kind of going to assume you're fucking right about that. Becomes a grand socialist utopia. But I think, actually, the first thing any grand socialist utopia is going to do is fucking close the fucking borders. So if someone comes up to me and says, hey, I'm a National Socialist, I love your videos, my first thought isn't going to be, well, you're
lean to, we're going to search for all the stuff that's just, you know, socialist and left-wing, because we want you to keep enjoying us.
Like to paint anyone that they disagree with as communist or socialist, right? Socialist is an evil, evil term. When I play the game again for the, you know, for the big run for doing a grand socialist utopia, I think what I'm going to do is make sure that, you know, physical takeover, what you have is a socialist movement in Britain that can almost nip the First World War off in the bud.
Neoconservatism. They are, in a sense, the equivalent of the socialists that put Jeremy climate change. There are a lot of right-wing people saying, what are we doing all these socialist policies? We should just go right-wing and fuck.
Here is this socialist idea of a shared social responsibility to care for the sick and not...
You are ceding the future to the socialists and the communists. You gotta up your games. You gotta figure out what next for the right ideal kind of socialist. Well, no, my ideal kind of socialist leader of Great Britain would be a...
call myself an environmentalist, gladly. But I'm not gonna call myself a socialist because, you know, fundamentally, I don't believe...
Nazis, people who genuinely call themselves National Socialists, people who make videos explaining in depth,
gonna be saying, well, look, she couldn't even beat a self-proclaimed socialist by more than a narrow fucking margin in the garden of the United States of America, of trying to bring glorious socialist utopia to America. Obviously, I really make a strong sort of almost socialist case for, you know, improving people's lives, then what happens is that money, and the only way that is going to be strong political power is if all the socialist countries come together and say, oi, European Union, you do...
They like to do this a lot. You know, you say you're a socialist, and they go, oh yes, National Socialism, isn't it so?
So that you can have grand, glorious socialist utopia with, you know, environmentalist controls and everything.
Okay, Buzz becomes queen of the world and leads the world into a grand socialist multiverse.
So yeah, I am basically at this... Conservatives, the Republican Party, you know, the fucking genuine National Socialists, right? I can't... You can't...
And whilst we've been, you know, doing sort of socialist, you know, distributing of funds and what have you, America has been out of history time and time after time. Or are you going to back the guy who is a socialist just because he's running against a socialist and who actually
are something huge and big coming? I saw left-wingers, pacifists, socialists, moralists, communists,
Jeremy Corbyn saying, yes, I am a socialist. Vote for me. I am a socialist and I will lead the country into a grand socialist utopia. I mean,
internet service, it's okay. So you've got essentially a libertarian socialist infrastructure living side by side. And
to mobilise, you need to have socialists again. Okay, and I know it's kind of difficult because you're still kind of looking at us going, what the fuck are you doing, man? You can't let a socialist in. But, you know, we are fundamentally, like, people are screaming and shouting, going,
but socialist and communist friends, and I don't just mean democratic socialists like Jeremy Corbyn and Bernie Sanders. I mean genuine. Unless perhaps Canada becomes a grand socialist utopia, or Europe becomes a grand socialist.
Bigot and socialist. Fascist and middle class. Fucking insane. It's absolutely fucking insane.
And the fact that the motto of the socialists and the communists is seize the means of production shows
Socialist who can maybe fix capitalism. He is the kind of socialist who can maybe put a fucking band-aid on it. It's the ideal I espouse to. It is, you know, I'm not a socialist, I'm not a communist, I am not a Conservative Party, because they're the biggest socialists of the fucking lot. They are socializing the rich, they are wasting money into the hands of
socialist until you've read about communism, but the moment you've read about communism, you can't call yourself socialist anymore because you're a fucking communist.
It becomes more open, more democratic, more socialist. Not national socialist.
You over. Like, how do you make essentially libertarian socialist communes work within a sort of 21st?
Rich women saying, how dare socialist men claim power for lower class people? Ooh, they're all sexist.
To please their core voters, socialists and liberals. Oh, that's brilliant, yeah.
Purity and genetic purity, and we stand against everything left-wing and socialist. So we are going to make a cult in the eve of nationalism, riding this wave of backlash against the lefty, poncy, socialist fucking elite. Shit, because even if we wanted to, even if we decided to try and enact grand socialist revolution in the general elections, vote for the socialists, vote for the lefties, and vote against nationalism. Because nationalism being the best England it can be, which is a non-colonial, pacifistic, socialist movement that examines the full kind of conservatives criticize socialists for, like, well, what happens when the money runs out? And yet these and capitalism. Communists and socialists and Marxists describe capitalism as this innately evil thing. Hey, the socialist leading the Socialist Party in Britain, how dare he? Yes! Yes, because what we need from a socialist leader is someone who will ignore the democratic will of the people, because
and you can elect socialists and communists and it ain't gonna do a fucking damn thing, because we live. Environmentalists are liking us, socialists are liking us, conservatives are liking us. Okay.
Perhaps I should write a guidebook on how to make a grand, you know, socialist community that everybody can survive in.
I'm a regulated capitalist. I'm not a socialist. I'm not a communist. I'm not an anarcho-capitalist. I'm not a fucking with communists and with socialists and others on the left. But I'm not a regulated capitalist anymore. Communist cities or whatever, people would genuinely be like, yay, the National Socialists are here. You know, the people who are watered down.
Owen Jones is a Prosecco socialist who went to, you know, an Oxford University, and there are many things about Owen Jones. This isn't nice from a socialist perspective, from a communist perspective, right? You know, that's in. It's almost socialist in a way, you know, seizing the means of production. The women are the means.
Will succeed in turning back the clock to some kind of left-wing socialist place. I think they are terrified
into mine glorious socialist utopia. Okay? And I will genuinely do that as a Let's Play if someone claiming that they are Nazis and National Socialists and who like genuinely the apparently official Twitter feed, they fucking agree with him and they say, hey, we're socialists too. Except they're not actually socialists, because these are, therefore, you know, it's catch-22. You can't call yourself a socialist until you've read about communism, but the moment you've read about communism...
Who makes his own jam and proudly calls himself a socialist. You've got the man who brings up in the middle of, you know, shady eyes, like, I don't trust them because they're like, hey, we're socialists, but also a nationalistic party, and measuring it under the neoliberal system? Are you measuring it under the socialist system? How are you fucking measuring this? How in your head in the hope you come to the right fucking conclusion on your own? I am not a socialist, but there is a problem here. A big fucking problem. And essentially we are a libertarian socialist society with small enclaves that will, you know, that will take...
You know, this is kind of like the old socialist coming to talk about, you know, fucking Tony Blair.
Accusations. Ah, you're a communist, you're a socialist. No, I'm a regulated capitalist. What that means is that actually are interested in those arguments won't pick them, right? Because you know, if you want to pick a socialist, are you going to be to pick the...
Actually, you've got a world government made up of individual libertarian socialist sections, and this distributed, decentralized, well, a Let's Play of let's turn America into a grand socialist utopia. You will have seen that one of the first things that I do is legalize...
Save this. You know? I mean, I want us to have the socialist in power so that we can give
wing opposition leader for the left-wing opposition party. How dare he? The socialist leading the socialist party in Britain. Environmentalists, state employees, socialist environmentalists. Okay.
Socialism to do with to kind of call me a socialist would be to associate with me with people